everyone. So, has anyone noticed when a woman would speak on the behalf of God or either minister in some capacity? For some reason, I've noticed from some men, not all men, that they would question the authority you have in God or question why you're speaking because you're a woman. And so I think about this, and I do understand. There's some verses in the Bible that might be used to say that women shouldn't speak. But then at the same time, I feel like a lot of the men who do this, they ignore people like Deborah in the Bible, who was a judge before Israel, or the woman who proclaimed that Jesus was raised from the dead. And so in the Bible, we do actually see a lot of women who spoke up on the behalf of God and were ministers, and effective ones at that. And so I guess what I'm trying to say today is that one of the reasons why we see so many people being lifted up who might look different from how we expect ministers to look is because, one, that's a part of God's nature, right? He often surprises us with people who we normally wouldn't expect to be in these positions, and He allows them to be in these positions to kind of shake up our mentality and show us that, God can move in any way that He sees fit. And the other reason why this is happening is the ministers, not all ministers, but there are a lot of ministers who are in positions today who haven't been faithful to what God has called them to do. And so a lot of times we're seeing these different abuses happening in church. We're seeing, as I mentioned, the coldness, unfriendliness, and other things that are happening, young ladies being unfortunately molested or being treated in other ways that are not right. And also this is happening to young men as well. And a lot of ministers who are seeing this, they're not speaking up and speaking out against the abuses and the sins that are happening in the church. So God is raising up people who don't look like the status quo in order to speak out against these things, because the ministers who He has called, for whatever reason, a lot of them aren't doing what He has called them to do. And so throughout this time, you're going to see people who look different, who you might not have expected to be, in these positions. God is going to raise them up because they're willing to do the work. And so what I'm saying is that, don't just judge by appearances. God can use anyone. Yes, He can use someone who looks like me, or He can use someone who doesn't look like me to do His work as well. And so that's kind of like my quick message, and also my encouragement to those who might look different, who people might judge and say, oh, you shouldn't be in this position. You shouldn't be saying the things that you're saying because you don't look like what I think you should look like. But, you don't have to look like what everyone else thinks you should look like. All you have to do is have a willing spirit and to go by what God has called you to do. And not only that, but go by His word as well, to read the word, to understand the word, and you will be able to live out God's calling on your life as long as you're willing. So don't allow people to discourage you or to tell you you can't do this because you're too old, you're too young, you're black, you're white, you're a woman, you're a man, boy or girl. You can do what God is calling you to do as long as you have a willing heart. Have a great day.